there's too much inventory in some spots and there's not enough inventory in other, and people aren't giving out jumbo loans, and you're like, who cares? Who cares? Because the stats are in your favor. Everything's lined up for you to be successful, with the exception of your minds. I'm going to introduce you to some of my heroes, like Janie and Craig, who's all about mindset. Like my friend Alinda, who still can't find a place to right? She's not here. Just tell her it's okay in a group text, right?
We're glad to listen to you too, though.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, Alinda, you know, she's 2019. She'll tell you a little about her story, but tragedy hits like many families and the children of many families. Tragedy hits between consenting adults, right? And it's like, oh man, the worst. What happens when a family gets divorced? It hurts the children, but it also hurts economically the two people. And when you're just teeter-tottering, you're doing okay, but you're not doing great, what happens? Now you take half of okay, and it turns into two non-greats with lots of stress, lots of pressure. If you've been part of this community, which, you know, like I shared, I'm from Brooklyn, right? Like, this is trippy when you move out to Utah. And there's a church, literally, like every house in the state can throw a rock and hit a church. Like, that's no joke, it's true. Every church, every community has a church in walking distance, and people walk on Sundays, and I love it. And I love my faith. So going to church is super cool, but that didn't happen in Brooklyn. Like, you couldn't get, you had to take 2 buses, a cab, and a plane to get to a church. So when I come out here, you know, there's a lot of things that happen when you break up here that is different than anywhere else. It's a lot of stress. But also there's not, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but you have to find it. You have to fight for it. Does that make sense? How many people have been here longer than 25 years? Awesome. I remember the first time I flew out here. It's pretty cool. In 1996, my salon was voted the #1 salon in the United States. Out of 350,000, we were #1 in business. Crushed it. I mean, per square foot, nobody touches. Nobody. We sold more soap than anybody in history to this day. I am the GOAT. GOAT. But at the end of the day, man, I came out here and I was involved in an MLM. As you might notice, I am a little chubby. I love being chubby. I've always been chubby. I was born a chubby Italian. I love to eat pasta, sundaes, man, another half of me is Peruvian. I love it. But at the end of the day, man, I was like, all right, I was younger. I wanted to go there, right? So this company called New Skin comes out with this product called ID and Nutrition. So I'm giving you some long backstory because she's still not here. And then I need to give her like 3 seconds.
She said she's at the light.
Okay, cool. So that's cool. Are you guys enjoying this so far?
Yeah.
Cool. Is it cool if I continue to entertain you? Okay, so I'm throwing in some accolades and I'm completely unprepared. But so anyway, I'm like, oh, cool, they give me this pill and it's supposed to attach fat to chromium and wash out the fat. And I'm like, this is awesome. So it's an MLM, never heard of an MLM. Thought I read about it a little because I knew Robert Kiyosaki and Keith Cunningham, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and obviously I was friends with Tony Robbins. So I'd heard about MLMs, but I'd never done it. And I thought, well, like, why would I do that? I'm already a millionaire. So if you're going to do anything, should you do it right? Right? If you're going to do anything, should you believe the people who are broke who are telling you not to do that? Yeah. So as soon as the broke people start saying, don't do that, I'm like, I'm going to crush it. In 90 days, I built a downline. In 1996, it was producing $16,800 a month. In 90 days. Then we win this award called Salon of the Year by Modern Salon Magazine. My PR company, I wasn't quite as cool as Jennifer, but I was still a little cool. So my PR company's like, dude, you can't be in an MLM and be the international creative director for a professional haircare company. Like, they don't like that. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? They're like, well, you gotta sell that, right? It's not making a lot of money. So before I sold it, I flew out to Salt Lake City because they had a big convention in a place called Provo, Utah. I never had heard of it. I'm like, I've been to every state, but I've never been invited to Utah. So I'm like, I'm going. So I fly out to Utah, and they said President Bush would be there. Og Mandino, who was the greatest salesman in the world, she's one of my favorites. And there was Florence Griffin Joyner was gonna be there. So I'm meeting all these people and I'm going to the Larson's house and it's the coolest. But I drove from Salt Lake to Provo. This is the point of the story. What was here? Nothing. Fields with horses and cows and stuff, everything but houses. Now, honestly, it's sinful if in the last 20 years you didn't become one. Because you had nothing but opportunity. It's been an insane amount of opportunity. Guess what? It's not going to stop. So NBC knows it's not going to stop. That's why it's focusing on Utah. Why? Because now we have Silicon Slopes where we're staring at my office and other offices, right? And it's super cool. It's going to continue to grow. And if you look at Alpine and you look at Highland, right? They weren't even blips on the chart. They were little outposts, right? And semi-cool was Draper, which is where I live. And now I'm like, Jennifer, show me a house in Alpine. She didn't show it to me. This is so incredible. And my wife's like, we're not moving. We're keeping our kids in school. They got to graduate. And I'm like, but it's really nice. And here's the thing. There's going to be one cool house after another. Does that make sense? Everybody raise your hand and say yes.
Yes.
That means there's one cool opportunity after another. That means some areas in this state are going to continue to develop and grow and flourish. And as new people come into the state, they're going to want to buy homes in these other areas. You can see what happened to Harriman. You can see what's happening to Spanish Fork right now. I can go through, I know all the stats because I work with Jennifer. Steve lets me have access to the stats, which he's best president in history of real estate, right? Because he loves stats too. So you have the best team. Today I'm going to introduce you as soon as Linda kind of takes a deep breath and settles in, because nothing's worse than being late when you know you have to get on stage. I was late. I went to 401. That's where my GPS took me. I walked into the building. I went to the top. I'm like going floor by floor. I'm like, does anybody know where Presidio is? Never heard of it. I'm like, well, don't ever. What do you mean? And it was clearly I was in the wrong building. But I found my way. That's another metaphor. Sometimes I'll give you one last metaphor. Does anybody see? You can look at the outlet centers. Do you know how Thanksgiving Point started? Who? Started Thanksgiving Point. Do you know how they started it? With what money? With the word perfect. So one of my best friends, his dearest friend, sold a company called Word Perfect. And they bought all this property and we're going to build. And there's this big plot of about 300 acres that we're staring at right now, 300 or 400 acres. Maybe it was 1,000, maybe it was 1,200. It's my bad. 1,200 acres. And it looked just like those mountains. Do those mountains look appealing? No, they look like dry grass. And in Utah, what was all this in the center 20 years ago? Fertile, beautiful, green, landscapes, gorgeous. That was just dry, ugly grass. So we bought all of that acreage for $1 million. And it's going for like 2 or 3 million. And I apologize, it was 1,200. Those acres? Is that what Jeff told you? Oh. No, this was about Thanksgiving. That was Jeff Flam. Yeah, so Jeff Flam owns all of these, right? And you can go through. She's somebody else that will speak at one of your things about real estate and what they're doing, what he's doing in the state is incredible. But he's one of the biggest real estate holders in the state because he was able to make an investment and believe when nobody believed. Do you know how many of his rich friends made fun of him for buying that acreage? Right? When you could have just bought a little bit less if you crushed it. They're like, no. I'm just going to buy it and hold it. I got an extra. Your time is worth money. You're going to invest. People are going to say, it's going to be harder. It's going to be impossible, but it's not impossible. Jennifer stands before you every day. Steve stands before you every day. They're excellent. I'm going to introduce you to some people who will become the impossible. People are ready. Okay, well, thank you for letting me entertain you. Well.
All the
Yes, so Cynthia. There's seats right here. You guys can just grab a seat. It's okay, it's okay. We're good, we're good students.
This is our speaker for anyone that's online, so just kind of remember that.
Oh, that's what that was. I'm sorry, guys. So we're gonna go through today, and we're gonna break everything down into 4 sections. First section will be introduction, and the second section, we're gonna start asking questions that I think will be really pertinent to your journey. Is that cool? Everybody raise their hands and say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly I was trained by Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. May we start? Introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of background.
My name is Leuri Zibetti. I graduated from West High School and moved to New Orleans, Louisiana to study aesthetics and electrolysis. I found as I was creating my clientele that I really enjoyed the business aspect better than the service aspect. So when I moved back to Utah, that was not a recognized profession here, so I had to get another job. I ended up in a property management company in their accounting department. I didn't know anything about accounting, so I had to go to night school to learn about accounting, which led to a job at a law firm in their accounting department. Found that I really loved that job and spent the next 20 years in numerous law firms in Salt Lake and Washington, D.C. Until my daughter hit her teenage years and I was commuting. I needed to be closer to home. She was a bit of a handful. So while I was scouting around for a new job, my husband, who was a lender, said, "Why don't you become a real estate agent?" To which I said, "Yeah, no. Hate real estate, hate sales." He said, "You don't have to do any sales just so that we can flip homes." And I said, "I can do that. There's a business component to that." I get a real estate license. I have some moderate success for about 3 years. Hate the job. There's no passion in it for me. So I'm scouting around to get back into the accounting and financial field. When I run across a property manager, a real estate agent that specializes in property management, and I thought, that's intriguing. That's something that not everybody is doing, but it's still real estate. I decide to go for it. It's got a business aspect, find my passion. 19 years later, it still fuels me.
How many doors do you have, Libby?
250 doors.
Clearly, I've inspired people to go deep on their stories. So that was awesome. Very cool, very cool. We're excited to learn more about you. And Jeanette.
Okay.
So my dream was not insurance, but I got a job as a receptionist for an insurance carrier when I was going to school, just as a way to pay tuition. When I graduated, the company offered me a promotion if I moved to North Dakota. I did. Then I moved to Albuquerque, and then I moved to Utah. My first night in Utah, I met David. 6 months later, David and I were married. 6 years later, we had the house, we had the dog, and we had just given birth to my son, Johnny. Life was really good. We had big dreams and we were walking them out. And then David got sick and died. I knew that my job wasn't able to support us. And so with that, I quit, put together a stock offering, built my first business, an insurance carrier. In a few years, it grew to 4 companies, sold it to a multi-billion-dollar national firm for 8 digits. And then I stayed on as CEO until 2016, when I stepped down to write a book and then to pursue new business projects. So that's what I'm doing. And it's really great to be here.
I want to focus on one thing before I move to the next book. How many women at that time were CEOs of insurance agencies or insurance brokerages in Utah?
It was an insurance carrier.
Carrier.
And I didn't know any.
So that would be 0.
0.
0.
Yeah.
Right. 0. And just to give you an idea, it would have been probably less than 0.5% national. Right. So if you want to talk about moving forward, right? Jane Ann's story is incredible. One of the greatest mentors in the world. Now my friend Cynthia.
Yes, and when I found out that I was in this panel with Jan, I go, okay, she has been I admired her for many, many years. So I'm my friend too, several years since moving to Utah a few years ago. So my name is Cynthia Gambill. I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. A beautiful country, a great place to be from. At the age of 20, I moved to the United States. No friends, no job, and it was just gonna be a year and a half just to kind of see. I've always been intrigued by the United States of America, living and growing up in South America. And I get the opportunity to come. My family moved here. So I said, I'm just gonna stay for a year and a half and then go back to school, going to college. And I never went. I stayed, went to the University of Utah, got my undergraduate degrees in business administration. Interesting enough, lucky enough, I passed the TOEFL test, which is a proficiency test for foreign students. I still didn't know the language at all. I was walking to a class at the U, and I didn't know whether I was in a math class or whatever. I just did not understand what was going on. It was a very difficult journey at a very critical time of my life. I was painfully shy growing up, and this country has sort of awakened a side of me that I didn't know about. So I owe this country a lot. I owe everything I have: my education, my family, my career. Speaking of family, I didn't get married until, unlike others, I didn't get married until a little bit later in life, because I really needed to finish my education. I went and then I got my MBA at BYU. So yes, there's a rivalry there. I feel it every day. And well-into thinking from both sides. And but anyway, I move on. I've always been, I've been in corporate America for many years. I also own my own business for a number of those years as my children started coming along. I am a mother of 4 boys, all baseball players, 1 professional, 3, and 3 the other ones are all at D1 Fulbright scholarship. And so I'm a baseball mom in many, many ways as well. About 8 years ago, I was presented with the opportunity to leave corporate America and join the nonprofit world. I do believe that our hearts and minds, our souls should be turned to a cause bigger than ourselves. And I do believe that just because most of the world is for-profit world, like I was many years. For many years, I was in New York when the towers went down. I had a meeting at 9 a.m. on the second tower that went down, and that never happened. I wanted to be a super mom. I had my baby with me, and I said, okay, stay in a hotel. I go, and it took me 5-6 days to be able to get back out west where I lived in Southern California. That was a turning point for me, but I've always wanted to see what I could give back to a country that gave me everything back. 8 years ago, I joined the team of SAPRIA, formerly known the Unique Foundation. We exist to liberate individuals and society from child sexual abuse and all of its lasting impacts. It is my life, it is my world right now, and I'm very proud to be able to represent and give voice to a group of very much growing community of survivors of child sexual abuse that have no voice.
So now I'm going to take you to another one of my heroes. Her name is Alinda. Just share with a little bit of your background and your journey. Just give us 2 minutes, the 2-minute synopsis, and then we'll get into some great questions. Is that cool? Everybody say yes?
Yes.
So we're ready for you, Alinda.
I don't know how to follow that. Gosh, So I'm Alinda Jensen. I am very high energy and ready to rock, roll, shake. So I was the typical woman working in corporate America, and in 2019 I found myself going through a nasty divorce. Had to move out of my nice big house into rent. Come on. You know, I was about that. Anyway, so went through a nasty divorce, and I saw a post on Facebook starting getting into like fix and flip. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. I have no money, right? I'm losing my job. I'm broke. I have no credit because I just went through a nasty divorce. So I am a single mom, and I'm like, I have to figure out how to make ends meet because this is not working for me. So I saw a post, and I was like, I'm gonna be the best fix and flipper out there. I knew nothing about real estate at all. I mean, I bought houses, but that was it. So I was like, well, how do I get into that world? So I joined their education program, and I educated in myself. So I invested in myself. Moving fast forward this many years later, I walked away from corporate America 2.5 years ago and decided I was just gonna jump and do it. When I turned 50, I decided, well, back a little bit. So I got really good at fixing and flipping mobile homes. Most people don't realize that you can make money in mobile homes. So at 50 years old, I decided to buy a semi-truck. Crazy, I know. So I started moving the mobile homes, and that decided was too much work, but I was the one underneath, checking up the tires, like I'm in there with my, doing all that at 50. And I did that for about a year. But I got to know the ins and the outs of the mobile home community and what it takes. I am a dealer still to this day, so I can go buy a brand new manufactured home and put it on some land. You'll have one of the looking. So I went back to my roots, which was wholesaling. So yes, I've done some fix and flips, probably, I don't know, 30-ish maybe. So I know the ins and the outs of it. And that's why I was late, because one of my property had a big old flood, and with real estate, we don't work 8 to 5, so we just have to go with the flow. But anyway, this month, July was my best month ever. I have netted myself over $100,000 just in the transactions that I've done. And I came from nothing, knowing nothing, right? And so I'm here to say that if you can dream it, you can achieve it. So there's plenty of different ways. I like to do creative financing. I got really good at buying property with other people's credit and other people's money. So if you want to know how.
2019 to now, it's 5 years. So in 5 years, I mean, if you just look at the history, I got divorced. Now, she's being very humble, but this year she'll net over $1 million in her company, net for herself in 5 years. Now, if someone would have told me, hey man, there's millions to be made in mobile homes, because I'm like, really? And I do the same thing that I share with people not to do. I love that you came from the cosmetology background, right? Because it really creates this strength and vibrancy in you. Can you guys all see the strength in these ladies up here? Like, their journey is incredible. So I wanted to share that. So we're gonna do this in 3 parts. Now, because I did inspire you to really go deep and long on your answers. We're told to only give you 60 seconds. In order to get through this so that everybody can get back to work with a lot of inspiration and start making money, we want to try to limit you to about a minute. Is that cool? So if I raise my hand, it's time to put a cap on that clock. It's cool?
Yes.
You guys raise your hands and say yes.
Yes.
So let me go. So who wants to start? Who wants to answer the first question? Jane Eyre. So the question is, you're gonna all share a similar question. I never really sent it to us, you should know. But this question is, can you share a pivotal moment where you knew you had to get up and do something, even though it was uncomfortable?
Got it. So for me, the most pivotal moment is one I already shared about, and it was the night my husband died. As I was standing in the hospital room, it was really hard to walk out, because leaving meant that everything I knew I was leaving behind, and I couldn't imagine what my future looked like. But I had a 2-year-old son, and so I made one decision, and the decision was that my son was going to get to live a full life, and that I was gonna make sure that we achieved our goals and our dreams. That one decision ended up, every decision we made from that day forward aligned with that purpose. And that's how I ended up starting my insurance company, which we had tens of thousands of agents, tens of thousands of dentists, hundreds of thousands of members across the country. So it wasn't a small thing. But my dream wasn't insurance. I started an insurance company because I knew it, and it was the vehicle that would support our goals and our dreams. And I think it's a really good distinction to know.
So the pivotal moment was clearly when the pivotal moment was when you were faced with something that you knew was onward, but you had to make a decision to move forward.
It was in the moment, standing, looking at that doorway, knowing, I saw how busy it was in the hospital, and it struck me that despite the fact that my world was ending, life was still going on. And that was really profound to me. And then I realized that you can't stay with something or someone that's dead. And I mean, I agreed, and it was hard. I don't mean to diminish it, it's just you didn't get as much time.
Always blaming on the trouble you tell.
But it was when I realized that I couldn't give in to my disappointment, my depression, my grief, because I had to give my son the life that we had always dreamed of giving him. And I had goals and dreams. And so getting clear on your purpose makes it so that you can make the decisions, and every decision aligns with your purpose. And then we realize that our jobs, as amazing as they are, they're vehicles that support our goals and dreams. Our decisions, they're vehicles that support our goals and dreams. It's, Michael Gerber calls it working.
Okay, who wants to answer the next
I
question?
can answer. Mine was September 11th, 2001. I just had my third baby that July of that year, and I was the woman that wanted to do it all, have it all, and justify everything and show off everything. And that day, I realized that it is impossible. I wanted to be the mom that would nurse the baby, so I would take all my kids on trips, business trips. My number one boy by 3 months was 14 airplanes, because I just wanted to be that person that could do it all. That day I realized that just like that, had I met my meeting, I probably would have left all my kids as a mom, and that was very touching for me. I went back home and I quit my job, and I never looked back. At the time, I was in the construction industry for several years, and I told my husband, I think I'm done. And this was a close call. And that was the turning point to the best of the possibilities that I had at the time for me professionally. I was going down the path of the path that I just did not like myself, as a mother, as a wife, and as a professional. So that was my dream.
It's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. It's incredible. Now I'm actually learning even more, because now I see why, with the loss of my daughter, I remember that moment instantly when I knew the moment. So that you had to be done. But then simultaneously, I was at the World Trade Center. And that was the moment that I made my decision to the cosmetology and professional beauty industry. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, man, I chase money. It's great. I got money, I got fame, I got stuff. I drove it. I was sitting there in the Porsche looking at these buildings thinking, this is great. Dating supermodels, black art, work. It was a pivotal moment. I did not know that part of your story, so thank you for sharing. How many people can have a pivotal moment in their lives? That two things I can tell you where Jane Ann was, my wife and I. We lost our oldest daughter 8 years ago. It was exactly 8 years ago, 2 days ago. And I remember the moment we got the phone call, and I had to literally catch my wife. and she fell down the stairs, physically catch her. And we sat, and I just held her for about 12 hours. And I remember that I couldn't, we had to make a decision, and the decision was, and I still live by that decision, was how do we want our children to see this home, because we had really children. And you have to make the decision to rise. You always have to. And that's what I'm hoping you guys are getting at this. You know, and the cool thing about decisions is you can go back and rename them. You don't have to live with the decision that you made. You can go back and you can redefine it and make a new decision that will drive you deeper. Does that make sense? So thank you for sharing that. I have a different question for you guys. I know you barely want to share, but I'm going to go help Alinda work out with us. So I'm going to ask you this question. What unique challenges have you faced as a woman in the industry that you're now working? What unique challenges have you faced as a woman?
Every day. Every day. So the mobile homes. So when you are dealing with people who live in mobile homes, they are Spanish, I'm not Spanish, and their culture is the men only talk to men. And I'm knocking on their door like, hey, the park says that you're being evicted and I'm here to buy your house. They're looking like, someone behind you because you're a woman and I don't want to talk to you, right? So that is like huge. So when I'm trying to, save them from losing their home, mobile homes are a whole different breed. So that's a huge challenge. And then when I bought my truck, my semi truck, obviously I'm not a CDL driver. Obviously I don't want to be tagging this mobile home driving down the road, but I had to be the pilot car. So I do have my pilot's license for not pilot like fly, but pilot car. As a woman, they're looking at me like, you own this semi? You're driving that, you're in charge. And so they would go to my driver and talk to him. And I'm like, I'm right here. And he would be like, she's the boss. And so that was a big thing, is being a woman in charge and having the answers. And I can tell them, and then they look at the driver and he tells them the exact same thing. So that I would just literally stand there and I'd be like, Josh, can you tell him this? And they're standing right there. And that was like an everyday thing. But now in my wholesaling business, I still get it as I'm calling on the phone. Hey, I'm calling because you're losing your house and I'm here to help, da da da. And some of them are like, if it's a woman, it's great because I'm compassionate. But when I'm talking to a man, they're like, well, what do you have, So I see it every day on a daily basis. So just know what you're saying, be very confident and be very much, this is how it is. Know the facts, know the ins and outs, know everything, answer their questions. And if you don't know, be very real. I'm not sure, let me find out. Don't just drop it and be like, oh, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Just go in and be firm and nope, this is my offer. This is where I'm at. This is how it is, You're $24,000 behind. So I have one that I went and knocked on the door on Sunday. He's $95,000 behind on his ORS. So he has a $95,000 lien. So he didn't pay his child support. He has a $10,000 lien, and then he has a $1,700. He needs $115,000. So, hi partner, I need $115,000 to stop this auction in your pocket. But he also wants $115,000 cash in his pocket. So I'm like, the numbers don't work. Your house isn't worth that. Well, I am in your house. I understand that. But your numbers do not work. I will take over your mortgage and I will pay your debt and I'll give you $30,000 cash. Take it or leave it. There's my offer. So you have to be firm. Well, I can get somebody else. Okay.
So one of your strategies is to be firm. Your second strategy is to not allow yourself to be influenced. And your third strategy is don't quit, because when you're faced with the opposition, right? We're all faced with it. I was completely marginalized in cosmetology, if you can believe it or not, right? Because I wasn't gay. I clearly was still chubby. I wasn't one of the beautiful people. I wasn't a girl. And they completely marginalized me to the point like, really? Like, which is hard. It's hard to overcome. In the reverse. Now I'm a complete dude, so at some point that's like, but you go home and you feel better, right? And that affects us all, right? Because when you're faced with a loss, because you will lose, there are going to be those moments. Like the first time I put in a hairbrush into somebody's hair. I got it so stuck in the hair that I cut it out. That was my first week in cosmetology school. I went home, like you couldn't tell, but I was bawling. You know, like, this is the worst, what did I do? I destroyed my life, right? So you run into that. How many people feel that they can overcome it if they were clear on it? So you have to have a strategy. You have to stand up in the face of adversity. So I love what you're doing. So I have a really cool question for you. You ready for it? Okay. We're going to need to stay in strategies. What strategies have you used to continue to move yourself forward? What are your 3-4 strategies that keep you focused on your goals?
I think that the key thing for me has always been to have a passion for the work. You don't have a passion for what you're doing, it becomes a struggle every day to keep doing that same thing. And you're just dissatisfied with life, which then affects your personal life as well. So that's my number 1 strategy. My number 2 strategy is I actually answer my phone. And I know that that's sort of a thing especially in younger generations where everything's a text. I do answer my phone. When people want to make appointments to see a house, we don't do self showings. We show. I know it's an industry trend. I know it works for some people, but for me, I have to show up. I have to meet the people. I have to show up. I have to talk to people because that's the only way I'm going to get a feel as to whether it's the right fit, both for tenants and for owners. The number 3 strategy is, for me, just hard work. And to me, it's not hard work because I love doing it. So I think that once you love something, that it's just not a lot of work for you. But I also take time to go to my little happy place. Whatever that little happy place is for you, whether it be traveling, whether it be reading a book, whether it's spending time with your family, take some time to do that. I don't care if it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes in a day. Take some time to go to that happy place, whatever that is for you. And that helps fuel you to keep going through the hard times. And I don't take those, when I have a vision about something, but somebody else and somebody in that same industry or in that same business with me has the same vision for a while, but then they change their vision and they move in a different direction. You can't take that personally because that's your vision. And now they're creating their vision. They might have started with you and you were a great mentor, but they might go in a different path. So you can't take that personally and decide that you're failing because they didn't stay with you. Your vision is yours, theirs is theirs, and you have to respect that and championing that. That's what Jen does so well, is that she champions other people, even when that vision changes from what she might have had for them, and they move on to something else. So championing others is a great way to stay energized in business as well.
That's awesome. So 3 strategies. Which one? Who wants to share their favorite strategy? Don't make them choose. So raise your hand. Who wants to? Go ahead.
Passion. I can really relate to when she talks about being passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, passion. One of the things that may I share an idea with you? I think that passion is great, right? And it's a buzzword in the Tony Robbins world, which I've spent 40 years, right? Passion is great. I think we have to consider finding the passion in what you do. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm passionate about collecting those garbage cans. But you can find the passion, right? I would never have found passion. I'll be honest, I never found passion in cutting hair, but I found passion in surfing. So I think that I want to just dive a little deep on passion. You can find the passion in whatever you do, through whatever you do does for yourself, for your family, for your community. Find that passion, because there's passion in everything, right? Versus having mentored probably almost 500,000 people in the last 40 years, which is crazy. I would tell you that the people who search for passion sometimes search for passion too long, because it's so fleeting, right? Passion is not necessarily that I want to be something. Passion is that I want to become something. Does that make you understand the difference? So I love passion too. Who wants to go? What's a second strategy that they can use? What do you think? Yeah, you, don't turn around, you know what. But if you did have an idea, what would one of the strategies be? What do you think about just answer the phone? Like if I were going to write a book with you, it would be called Answer the Phone. I mean, what an incredible strategy, just answer the phone, take the call.
Even when you know that call is going to be hard, I sometimes look and see who's calling like, oh, I'm not prepared for that. And I pick up the phone and say, I gotta do it sooner or later.
Yeah.
And Jennifer and I were having a very unique conversation last week when we were at a friend's party and it was with your husband. I want to share it because I did the same thing happens to my wife. And if you're successful, your spouse is always going to be on the other receiving end of this. And they were on their way to go someplace and she's like, well, yeah, I'm still working. She's working in a nicer place. And he's like, yeah, she's still working, right? Why? Because she picks up the phone. It doesn't matter where you are, you're going to be success. Success is 24/7, 365. It is not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 with life work balance. So I think pick up the phone is a killer. All right, so we're on to Act 2. You guys getting anything out of this?
Yes.
Super cool, man. I'm stoked. And I can see why all these ladies are way more successful than I'm saying. Okay, cool. So Act 2. I'm going to give you 2 choices of questions. So you can think about it. You can choose either one. The first question is, can you describe a time when you faced a major setback? Most of you had already done this. So that might not be the question you want. What role does mentorship play in your growth? I might ask you. I'm gonna ask you. Because you answered that other question too in this stuff. So what role does mentorship play in your growth?
So for me, if I can teach people to do what I do, everyone thinks that it's competitive and you're teaching someone to take away. But honestly, there's enough out there for everybody. So if I can mentor someone to do what I do, I just want to build them up and help them. And if they can do half of what I'm doing, great. There's plenty out there. Like I grow if you grow. You grow, then I grow. We all grow together. And as women, I'm all about empowering other women. So I'm big into that. So I just want to teach and help them learn.
Let's take it also from the perspective of how does mentorship play a part in your growth?
I need all the help. That's why I'm paying him. Like be my friend, help me.
So
Remind me. I need guidance. We're always learning, right? And I'm never to the point where I have learned so much that I don't need to learn anymore. I have to, in with what my industry, I have to constantly change. So I need guidance, I need help at all times. So I have to be teachable.
how many people agree with that?
Absolutely. When it comes to mentorship, I think of my very first employer boss. His name is Robert Becker. He hired me at the age of 21. Remember, I moved here at 20, so I had only been here for a few months. I needed a job, I needed to go to school, and he hired me. The interview at the time, the job was to be a receptionist and answer phones. That's a hard thing to do when you don't have a handle on the language. So my interview with him was not ideal. It was not what I would have wanted. I've had more of a handle on the English language, and he still hired me. Years later, I asked him, Bob, why did you hire me? I mean, really, I had the passion and I had probably the skills, but the form of communication was lacking totally. And he said, Cynthia, I didn't hire you for what you showed at the time. I hired you for the potential that I saw in you. And that stayed with me all of my career to this day. I do believe that mentoring or being mentored, either way, is to hang out with people that believe in us, even under the worst of circumstances. I love mentoring, I'm mentoring groups, I love mentoring my employees. I always ask them inquisitive questions. And I maybe you know the answer already, but I want them to be part of that conversation. I want them to be part of the decision-making process that really help them more than they will help me. Yes, thanks.
That answer. That's cool, and I love how you brought it back, is to be a great mentor, you have to see the greatness in others, and you have to really develop. To be an excellent mentoree, you have to believe that the mentor sees something in you that's excellent, and you have to go find it, and it's up to you, it's your responsibility to soak that fire. So I think those are two prime responsibility. I love it, and I think you guys are great mentors. So now to my mentor. Jenna, what do you think about being a mentor?
So I mentor and I pay for mentors, and also some of the greatest mentors I have are around me. They never knew they were mentors. One of my favorite mentors are waiters. Because when I've seen waiters banter with their customer, then I practice what they do. Because waiters are really good, servers are really good, so they're mentors all around. So I'd like to give a point if I can. Can I get one mentor strategy? Just a minute, okay, just a minute. So if you don't look at today and everybody around you as a mentor situation, then you might leave inspired, but you're not gonna leave changed. So I'm gonna give you a really quick, fun mentor strategy that you can start immediately when you leave here. We all have three voices. Okay. Singers, you can hear a song and you can be in a sad mood, but if you hear a lively song, it might make you joyful, right? Or you can be in a really happy mood and you hear a sad song or a melancholy song and it makes you melancholic, right? Well, imagine if when you're sitting with a counselor or when you're sitting with a customer or you're negotiating a contract, imagine if you can have that same power that the musician has. You can. They say the brain cannot tell the difference between singing and speaking. So practice using melody. When we speak, we want to use melody. How do you use melody? Periods, using three voices, and tonality. So if and adding periods, so very, very quickly. If I'm speaking to you with melody, I'm accomplishing what the singer does. If I use my three voices, especially for women, I'm gonna be much more effective, because as a woman, if I speak up here too much, I lose all credibility. People think I'm a little insecure and unstable. But if I'm ready to negotiate and I'm going into my middle voice range, right? And if I really want to make a point, I'm probably going to go deep. But as a woman, if I go deep too much, people don't think so highly of me. The last thing is when we read, there's periods and there's commas. A comma means that you want to keep people going, right? Sitting at the edge of the seat. All you do is you raise your voice just a little bit. You don't go down. When you go down, that's a period, end of statement. So how do you practice that today? Practice using your melody. Use your three voices. If you use them right, then you keep people on the edge of the seat. And when you say, now I need you to sign this contract, sign here. They do. It's really, really fun. I just want to encourage you, take something you have today and put it into practice. Otherwise, inspiration without application, it's not going to be as effective for you.
And I love that point that you made. Right? You brought it back to the contract. When you're speaking of the contract, you need a middle voice. But when it's time to sign, you can go a little deeper with sign.
Right.
Right. With that light level of command changes the way you even feel. I'm thinking about, I do that. Yeah. But the thing is that's so practical, and it's a nuance that I wouldn't even have picked up on. So that's why you're my
As a woman,
everybody sign the contract now.
well, as a woman, if you're managing people too, if you spend too much time in your low voice, using too many periods, what do other people think about you?
Your boss.
You're rude.
Yeah, it's not very effective, but I can fire somebody. And if I do it with commas in my melody, I've had people say, thank you.
Wow.
She always sits it out of the park.
I've never been part of a formal mentorship, either paid for it or had somebody be a formal mentee.
Sign here.
But I can think of many times where I have sat in many of these jobs that I've had over the years, where I have sat in offices with people that I've developed relationships with, just talking through life strategies and business strategies with them. And even today, the company that I worked with 10 years before I came and opened up my own company, even today, I still consider him a mentor, and we still go to lunch. I still call him and send him texts asking about business. So one of the other things about being a mentor is that even though I don't consider myself a mentor, I get a lot of calls and I encourage this. And it's one of the things that I really like to do to give back to the industry is any agent that is working with a buyer that is buying investment property, my plea to them is please contact a property manager. Ask them, what will this property bring on the open market? What are the complications? What are the things that they should be looking for? And I've had many real estate agents do that, and it helps them to be better agents with their people and to help guide them, because that's what they're there for. And so that gives me a lot of satisfaction there. And I go out and share that with people. And I also look for other people in the industry that can help me understand better about how I'm doing my job.
One of you, if you don't point out to you that you have been paying for mentorship, you know, that they're, your time and energy are worth their value, right? You guys have the opportunity to have one of the best mentors in the industry in this room right now for you to guide you through. Now you're in front of four more mentors, right? And you have this opportunity, please don't waste it, right? I learned so much from Jennifer when we sit down, and that's the most valuable time of my week. And I know my ratings, I still feel like I'm winning, you know, and it's very, very cool because you can learn something instantly, and nothing in the whole world is more valuable than that cheese.
Peter, actually, I probably need to say something that I know this. I think as women, there's somebody in the room who probably help us through this. We are told many things. There's a lot of voices that come into our professional life. And I'm a woman, I'm a minority, I've been discriminated against, you know, throughout my life here, and you know, so there's a lot of, I can just probably write a book on all that aspect. But at the end of the day, I think we can be mentor and be mentors, but we need to be very authentic. I think that if we are not who we are, if we are not ourselves, if we have to put an ad 8-10 hours a day, by the time we get home, we're exhausted, we're not being ourselves. We cannot change who we fundamentally are. And I think that it is important that we gain all the knowledge and learn from others and be taught and teach others, but I still think that there's a risk that we take by going too far into that field of you're a woman, you're a minority, you're this, you're that, and no, we are still individuals and we need to remain true to ourselves, whatever that is. And if people don't accept you, then we want to be left from that way.
I'd like to go a little deep on something you said. Now, I grew up here, I was from Peru, Spanish was my first language. I'm first generation. And we moved back from Peru when I was 5. but I was born here, so I'm a US citizen, but I came back, right? And I could say that I was discriminated against. And as you were saying this, man, that feels like in this climate, it's like so easy to say, right? You're discriminated against. I'd like to offer something that I'm going to probably write a thesis on while I'm away in the next 2 weeks. It is, I don't think I was discriminated against. I think that I've met a lot of people who just didn't understand me and they didn't know me. And I think if I can come at people with this impression of where I love first and teach. So to your point of being authentic, I'm going to share with you the most authentic thing. And then I'm going to share with you components of how that makes me authentic. And share within those components how my being me does not mean you are anything but you. And I think that can start a healing process, in which I think is sorely needed in our country in this moment. Because my being me doesn't take away from you being you. But you certainly don't understand all of the things that I am yet, which is just an opportunity for me to share with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And I find that sometimes we're tentative because we're not being ourselves, you know. And you and I have discussed this even through. It's hard to be the expectation of the environment 24/7, 365. And as the environments change, right? Because my kids do. How many people have kids? I'm so sorry. Right? But do you have a different? Are you a different person when you're a parent? It's like I show up and they're, you know, right now my kids are teenagers, so I'm not actually a parent, I'm a cash machine. Right? And then you have an expectation within your friends, within your professionals. So I think if you, to Cynthia's point, if you find your authentic self and just be that, then you can be consistent all day long and you'll have a greater amount of energy. And then people get to learn who you are, not what you are. And I think that would really make a big difference. So I love that piece. We're gonna, do you want to add to it?
Regarding mentorship, I think the greatest mentor was actually my father. My parents were from Brazil. So I was born here, but I lived off and on in Brazil back and forth. And so I learned Spanish as well. So I speak fluent Portuguese and fluent Spanish. My father, despite being from a very patriarchal society, never made a distinction between his 3 girls and his boy. He always told me, you can be whatever you want to be, whenever you want to be, you just work for it. So I never felt personally that I had any limitations as a woman because I had a mentor that taught me that there were no limitations. And I think that as mentors, that's part of what we do, is to help people understand that it doesn't matter male, female, black, white, whatever culture you're from, there are no limitations. In that is to help us bring forth the best that we have in ourselves.
We have one more question, so that but before I want to make a distinction between mentors and champions. May I make that distinction? See, a mentor is somebody that you're going to ask to look at me and what strategies do I need to apply now? And a mentor is going to say, you know, Peter Anthony, man, you know, you really should save more money, eat better food, be nicer to you, right? They're going to look at you and they're going to tell you the rough stuff. And then give you strategies. They're going to believe that you can do it, but they'll fulfill in the strategy, right? That's a mentor. Here's the challenge with so many people right now in the personal development world. You're looking for champions. Oh my God, you're so great. You can do this. It's going to be awesome, right? And then as soon as the champion moves into the mentorship role, you're like, oh man, I don't like that. That was really tough. You have to distinguish that mentors are one thing and champions are another. The champion should not know your weaknesses. The champion should only know your goals, your expectation, your vision, so that they can go out there and be your champion. Does that make sense to everybody? Very often, Jennifer will be in the role of having to be both. And having been in that role, and you were in that role where you have to champion your agents and mentor them simultaneously, it is a very difficult role. But it becomes easier when the person we're championing understands that if we move into mentorship, it's not personal, it's just business. Does that make sense? So you have to make that distinction in your mind. If I'm mentoring you and then I'm saying, but you can go do it, right? But when you're being mentored in that moment, sometimes you feel a little bit like, oh man, I did it again. I ate that jelly donut. I knew I shouldn't have eaten the jelly donut, but it was there. Look at all these jelly donuts, right? I should have the grapes, but the jelly donut's calling me. And somebody put like some poppy seed thing there that I love. I have to have the poppy seed. I don't want a carrot. So I go eat the poppy seed, and then my mentor comes to me and says, well, Peter Anthony, what triggered you to do that? You know, and what thing in your past? And then I'm thinking about my past, and I'm thinking like, oh, you know, we did mention 9/11, and that was like emotional. And then we did mention death, how that was emotional. So of course I want the poppy seed. Why are you busting on me? You know, and I don't want you to determine that mentorship equates with weakness, frailty. Mentorship is the strength to endure the maybe criticism in the moment, as long as it's gifted with strategy, is what you're looking for. These guys are giving you not only mentorship, but they're giving you strategies. Jane Ann's point, right? It's like, where are we going to take it? And then the next thing that you're looking for is to go to the next thing. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? The champion, so I can champion you, right? Allison champions me all the time. She's like, Peter Anthony, you're so great. And I'm like, if you only knew. Right? You know, and Jennifer and I play with each other all the time. It's like, yeah, I'm not, already now, I don't want to be a champion. I want to be a whiner. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, I have that day where I just want to take my employees and I want to throw them out the window with my computer. And it's probably not effective, you know, boss person stuff. I still have it, and sometimes I feel that way about my children. Just want to chuckle. Rotten little rat, I think everything you're being like that. I would have cried. So, but I still have to show up and be my kid's champion. Does that make sense? So there is a differentiation. Sounds like you have incredible upbringing. Well done to your father. I too have 3 daughters and a son. And I tell my daughters they can be anything, and then I show Jennifer and Jamie. Like, be like them. You can be anything as long as you're like that. So here's the last question. Are you guys ready? Was this wonderful so far?
Yeah.
Do you feel this is helpful? Okay, cool. Before I go to the last question, I have an ask. Would anybody be willing to do my ask? Raise your hands and just say yes. Okay, so before we break up, I'd like to put everybody in front and take a group picture. Is that cool? Take one group picture. Then I'd like everybody to take a picture with a couple of people. Is that cool? And then all those pictures will wind up in social media. Raise your hand and say that's cool. Sign on that. All right, here's the last question that I'll give you. I'm going to start with Alinda, and then I'm going to give you all time to contemplate it. And then I'll follow up. It's actually 2 questions. The last question is a simple one. How do you approach risk taking? Okay. Tell everybody again. How do you approach risk taking?
I plug my nose and jump. Like, I'm a woman, and do I want things to happen for me? Yes. I am independent and on my own, and nobody's gonna do it for me, so I have to do it myself. So literally jump in, all in. You're either in or you're out. You're either a leader or you're not. Move, shake, get out of my way.
Hold your nose and jump in. I love that. You definitely need to tell my daughter.
Obey or go home.
That's the dragons. I love it. Cynthia, how do you approach this thing?
I think that pretty much everything that we do has an element of risk. It's a lot of what we want out of that experience. To your point of in or out, if there is something that it is not going to be a benefit, you cannot advance your agenda or your family agenda. Latin, your family It's, Mama Bear, I have 4 very determined sons and husband too, but as far as the sons, you know, they live in a world that is very, very competitive. And there's a lot of baseball players that want to become one, you know, beyond little league or high school, right? So that's, I don't know any other way that they taught me, excuse me, mentorship. They taught me, the value of hard work. I don't know any other way, to get away from risk circumstances. I don't know any other way. I learned to develop some sort of thick skin, and not because just by seeing it, is by having, I welcome rejection. I welcome things that do not turn out. I learn more from those than the alternative. And so risk is inevitable. We're going to have it no matter what we do. If we don't want to take risks, then we still won't. And very secure 24/7, 365, and there's no gonna be this. The moment that we step out of our bubble or our comfort zone, risk will go to start. And I welcome it. And I have learned to internalize and learn about myself. What is that? Coming from a different country was one of the biggest risks that I've taken. And but I said, let's do it.
So I love it. So you see, I want to point out the progression that you can break down. The first answer is jump in. The second answer is work your butt off. Right, so first jump in, then work your butt off. And I'm thinking that we'll wind up with a progression that will be very valuable.
Okay. So my worldview is that I have been created and put on planet Earth to accomplish something above and beyond my imagination, and that life is an adventure. And so you cannot live life as an adventure without taking risk. I believe we build our mindset and we surround ourselves with people that pull us higher, and we are going to take risks. Now, I've taken risks and experienced loss as well. And so I've had to adopt a mindset that I weigh the risk based on what the cost might be. And so I think that when you're doing things that you are fully persuaded that you're in line with what you're supposed to be doing or what you're going after, then you're going to take big risks. There's no way around it. When you're working with people, and I think you have to be more cautious in exposing them to risk. And so I come out of a really highly regulated industry, as you guys do. I mean, I was a financial institution, being an insurance carrier. And so I had to weigh out risk every single day with every single decision. And so I'm probably more cautious when it involves other people. But on the same hand, if I feel like I'm fulfilling my life's call, I'm all in.
So the progression, jump in, work hard, evaluate this. Evaluate, write it down. You have a series of things that you can weigh against to find out, is that going to be good for me? Is that going to be good for my team? Is that a risk worth taking? So I love it so far. So we've got a great progression. And now you get to close that progression off. No pressure.
I am a data gatherer. I study out, there's lots of trends in every industry. When I decided I was going to go out on my own for property management, I had met a property manager in Las Vegas and through Women's Council of Realtors. I asked her for her time. I flew out to Las Vegas and spent a day with her, asking her, how does this work? How did that work for you? How did you do this? And I just gathered all the data, and I still do that, and then I evaluate whether that particular thing that I'm considering will serve me well, will serve the industry well, and will work for my clients, for my employees, and for the tenants that I'm working with. So I gather all of that, but first you have to decide to jump in. You do all of these other things, working really hard. I worked hard to gather that data. I evaluated all the data that I had gathered to make a decision, and I still do that. I think we all still do that every single day with every decision we make about our business.
Love it. Well done. So the last thing is that, has anybody picked up on a common theme with the four people that are up front today? They all have jumped in. They all have high level of self-confidence, even when it's uncomfortable. They all work hard, but there's this thing about data. They're all doing the work, but the work isn't staying busy. The work is actually getting granular, right? It's studying the things that you need to study to excel. So I think it's incredible that you guys are all up here at the same time. I have one last question, then we take pictures. Are you guys cool with taking pictures? Because we want to document everything, right? On social media, so that we can tell people, well, you know, I'm not actually studying, but I'm with very brilliant people. Here's the thing. In 2 sentences or less,
Did you know?
one greatest piece of advice that you can give to somebody who wants to move to their next. So,
Lose your fear, but not your grace.
oh, I love that. Another book.
Get clear on your purpose, what's important to you, so that you can make right decisions that align with that.
Show up. Find a cause or mission that's bigger than yourself. That will give you satisfaction, and at the end of the day, give you purpose.
Invest in yourself.
I didn't think they were going to sit to when I said sign the contract, you have to do that. So I want to share a couple of things, and then I want to turn it over to Jennifer. What do you think is your greatest piece of advice for people who are trying to move up one rung, want to move up one rung, or maybe 3 rungs from where I am to where I'd like to be?
Just doing the acts of what the direction you wanna go is what creates confidence. The more you do it, the more you're flexing muscle that you learn, I can do this, and I believe in myself, I got this. So doing the actions instead of sitting around waiting and hoping that these great things are gonna happen to you is what builds that confidence. For me, there are no risks. You could take everything away from me that I own, and I know I'd go build it tomorrow. So confidence is key, but I only got that by doing.
Right, so, I want to tell you how important I think that is, the key element, right? It's finding things that are going to build your confidence. Small sequential steps, consistency outweighs big things and then rest, right? It's the small things over time that are going to create really big results, like compounding interest. So I think that's an amazing advice. How many people enjoy the advice that you have? I'm certain that any of these guys would love to answer your questions and would be happy to share their personal cell phone numbers and their home addresses. And then you can get mentored by them too. But actually, I'd love to take some pictures, and then I'd love for you guys to kind of break up into groups and network with them, say hello, and love on some people more. Are you good to do that for 10 minutes? Thank you so much. I think I've been. Because I'm the marketer, I'm gonna put Jennifer and everybody's gonna show people in front.